Hi.
Hey there.
Yeah. Hi. I was just talking with whoever was before this, and was just kind of, my question was kind of, how do you navigate relationships, friendships, whatever it is. My exact circumstance is a friendship, but when people's boundaries, I guess, feel more like walls than they do
Mm,
boundaries, or like there's kind of a porous kind of opening thing. I think in my situation, there is a close friend who has done so much work, and she's been like a few steps ahead of me in terms of timing and learning boundaries. It's been profound and healing and all these things over the last couple of years. But
mm.
in some ways, it feels like often her, uh, maybe she's really easily triggered by things, and maybe that's just part of her process. But it feels like she's really maybe hypervigilant or really sensitive to anything that's like slightly off in a dynamic. And so it feels like most of our friendship
And things
has
that
just
are
become
slightly
boundaries.
off with you and her, or just things are slightly off in life. She kind of goes off a little bit.
Kind of both. Yeah, kind
Huh?
of both. And I think in some ways I have like maybe coddled some of that sensitivity and just given her the reins every time. But it feels like
Hmm.
if I say something that is like slightly not the way that she wanted to say it, it becomes a boundary. And then it's like half of the conversation we now can't have anymore because they've all become boundaries. And at what point do
Yeah.
you kind of let someone, is that just the way that they want to navigate? And I have to decide, do I want to stay in close relationship with that? Do you have a conversation? Do you let them go? How do you navigate something like that?
Well, those are all options for sure. I mean, and I've seen all of those end up being the answer. But give me a specific. And you said something really, really wise. You said sometimes it may be a part of kind of where she is in her own journey. Um,
Mm-hmm.
one of the things we wrote about in the boundaries book is that when somebody's had no boundaries and all of a sudden they discover boundaries, they're sort of like a toddler. Have you ever been around a
Mm-hmm.
toddler that it's like the only word they know is no? They've learned to
Yeah,
say, no, no, I don't want to do this now. They're like, nah, 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 and everything's a
totally.
boundary. Well, there are a lot of adults like that, and they're going through a toddler phase, and we kind of have to scratch our heads and go, boy, I'd be glad when this ends. And they kind of mellow out after that. But give me an example of something that you would do, and she kind of gets sort of caught up in this.
Mm, that's a good question. I think if there's something that, like, if we're just having a normal conversation and I say something and the
But give me a
wording
specific.
is,
I need a specific.
well, we had a kind of like a text, or we were actually voice memoing, so not like calling, but sending voice memos back and forth. And I said something about, um, she had said something like someone has something for me, and I was like, oh, that's interesting, because I actually asked that person not to um, communicate with me. It's like kind of a messy
Somebody,
situation.
wait a minute, someone has something for you? What does that mean?
Yeah, someone was trying to send like a package through her to me when I had kind
But
of
and you had already
cut
asked
off.
that person to not communicate with you?
Correct.
Wow, so
And
they did the
so,
sneaky way of getting to you. You voiced your back and you said, you know what, I'm not even going to receive that gift. So tell them not to bother. Thank you very much. And then what
hmm
happened?
and something about that was
No, what
I
happened?
think she stopped. She hearted the message and stopped responding to me. And then a month later, I had texted her after that and said, like, hey, I wanted to explain a little bit of what happened in there, enough to speak well of that person, but explain why I had to, end communication with them.
Mm-hmm.
And this is like a really close friend. So a month of not responding to a message like that was interesting. And so she responded and then said, I'm actually like that was really hard for me. I actually need space from that. I'm going to have to process this, and basically said Merry Christmas. So like, I won't talk to you for another month. And just things become really triggering for her. I don't know exactly what it was in that, but
okay. That's pretty triggered.
mm-hmm.
Right. And this happens a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah, it feels like a lot of times.
Does she have any friends that kind of remain?
I think that's been the interesting thought recently, is that I've heard her more and more talking about like, well, this person did this, and I probably won't be as close of friends with them. This person
Well,
did
wait a
this.
minute. You've heard her. She's not talking to you. How did you hear her more and more? If
This
she's not
was
talking
like
to you
over the summer. I feel like it's been kind of a pattern since the beginning of the year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I think don't take anything I'm saying as being right or true, because I don't know enough about her or you to think that what I'm going to say is right, but I can tell you what it sounds like. Okay. If somebody is either wounded enough or whatever's going on with her to where something would kind of hit them the wrong way, and then they ghost you for a month. And then finally, when you reached out in a very good way and said, look, that kind of felt weird. I kind of want to explain that, which should be an invitation to close the loop. And now we're fine, right? That tells me that she's got a lot going on. And I think if it's that much, you have a couple of options. One is, I think you can decide that, with everything you've heard her saying to other people and about other people and all that, that if you're going to be her friend in any kind of, proximity, or you're going to have any kind of like a lot of interaction with her, that you're probably going to have a very bumpy road. And I think you have to put on your hat of, this is not going to be as mutually satisfying probably as some of your other relationships. And you can put on that hat and you can say, I'm going to love her. This is where she is. I feel like God has called me into her life and I care about her, and everybody else kind of abandons her. And so I'm going to do this. Okay. And you can do that, or you can, and this isn't quite either or, but you can also say, well, I'm sorry you feel that way, that you don't want to, you have to get some distance on me. My preference would be, because I care about you, my preference would be that we could get together and talk about it. I certainly, if I've hurt you in some way, I'm so sorry. I'd like to know what I did. I'd like to know how I hurt you. I wasn't aware that I have, but if I have, I'm really sorry and I want to hear about it. And make an invitation to, kind of patch it up, and she can respond to that or not. And then from there, kind of the next phase is, if you have enough equity and enough of what's called in therapeutic circles an alliance, if the glue in your relationship is strong enough, then you could say at a different time, maybe not in that conversation or when that is resolved, you can say something like, you talked about me with Mary and Susie and Joey and Tabitha and all these other people, how you had to have some really severe boundaries and not be around them anymore. And then, when that happened with us, that wouldn't be my preference for us. I would hope that when things happen, and if something's hurtful or feels that way, I would hope we could talk about it. So I just want to invite you to, if that happens, to do that with me, because that's what I would like. And if you can't, that's fine. And so all the way to, you might just decide, you know what, I think I need to just let her have her choices. She said she wants to have some space and she can go talk to her therapist about it. And maybe she'll come back. And I've seen that happen as well. So I think that's kind of your menu of options, sort of.
That's so good. That is so wise. I love the wording
So,
of like my preference would be. I think that's so helpful.
yeah, I hope that helps.